My name is Sophia. I'm 36 years old. I used to be the head of marketing for a major retail chain in Chicago. But now, I'm just a woman learning how to stand back up after a 6-hour surgery to remove a dangerous tumor. I had just opened my eyes from a sleep heavy with anesthesia. I hadn't even reached for a glass of water or a painkiller when Mitchell, my husband, walked in. He didn't ask how I was feeling. Not a single word of comfort. He simply held his phone in front of me, showing a message from his mother. Mom says you should start prepping Christmas dinner. The whole family's coming, no excuses. I tried to sit up, but the incision burned beneath the hospital gown. I whispered, I just had surgery, Mitchell. I can't. But he only shrugged and muttered, aren't you just home all day anyway? Have you ever felt invisible in your own home? When the people who are supposed to care for you treat your existence like a burden. If you've ever spent a holiday where your heart hurt more than your body, leave a comment below. Hit like if you believe women deserve rest when they're healing. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel to hear the rest of my story. Because after that Christmas dinner, no one in my husband's family would ever see me as the help again. I had a plan for that. And they had no idea. I sat numbly on the edge of the bed, a dull ache radiating from my incision, making every breath feel like labor. The morning light crept through the bedroom window, casting pale rays on the tired lines etched across my reflection in the wall mirror. Just 3 weeks earlier, I was an independent woman. As the head of marketing at a large home furnishings chain, I used to run campaigns worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'd stood on stages, presenting to rooms filled with people. And now I was struggling just to pour myself a glass of water. I took medical leave nearly 6 months ago when I found out about the tumor in my abdomen. At first, I thought a few weeks of rest would be enough. But after deeper testing, the diagnosis was far more complicated. After consulting 3 doctors, I chose to go through with a full removal, accepting the risks to have a chance at living. Mitchell didn't object. In fact, he seemed supportive at the time. Health comes first, babe. I'll handle everything, he'd said while signing the hospital forms. But after surgery, I realized that what I'd called family was just a gilded cage. What do you think I can do in this condition? I asked into the cold morning air. But Mitchell had already left the room, abandoning me with a flood of texts from his mother, his sister, people who never once asked how I was doing post-op. All they cared about was whether the dinner would have their favorite dishes. The house that once felt warm now felt like a rented room in someone else's home. Nothing seemed like mine, even though my name was still stuck on the deed. The little things I used to love, the mint green ceramic mug, the tablecloth I picked during a trip to Colorado, had all been replaced by things Evelyn, my mother-in-law, brought in to match the family's taste. I opened my laptop to check my hospital bills, but accidentally saw an unread email from the bank. Confirmation of withdrawal. $6,500 from the Joint Retirement Fund per request of Mitchell Graham. I blinked. A withdrawal? I never agreed to that. I never signed anything. That account was our joint retirement fund, set up after our wedding, with a written agreement that neither of us could take out a penny without the other's signature. I opened the transaction history. A series of small withdrawals, some a few hundred, some a few thousand, had started 3 months ago, all from him. Without a single conversation or warning. My heart pounded like my incision was being ripped open again. I fumbled for my phone with trembling hands. I called Jenna, a college friend, now a marital financial attorney. Send me every single document, Jenna said after I gave her a quick rundown. Sophia, if you don't stop this, you're going to lose everything. Even the house you're living in. I hung up, still shaken. That night, while Mitchell thought I was passed out from medication, I heard him on the phone in his office. The door wasn't fully shut. His voice was low but clear. Mom, I told you. She's weak now, it's perfect. If she resists, just get the private doctor to say she's paranoid or having post-op depression. We have good insurance. The private psych hospitals will take her no problem. I froze. I already told the bank. She agreed to the withdrawals for medical bills. Let's wait until after Christmas. Then we'll refile the deed. She won't know a thing. I pressed my hand over the incision, not for the pain, but to stop myself from screaming. I used to think Mitchell was just emotionally distant. I never imagined the man I'd shared my life with for 8 years was planning to erase me from it. I grabbed my phone. I didn't call Jenna. I hit record. Every word came through clearly, no guessing needed. I saved the file and named it Christmas Plan. 12 minutes of audio. Enough for evidence. Enough to snap me out of the fantasy of an ideal family. The next morning, Evelyn video called me. She didn't ask how I was doing. No concern. Just the same smooth, controlling voice I'd grown used to. Victoria will handle the chairs. Summer's bringing the new wine glasses. You, Sophia, will cook the main courses. Little Madeline's allergic to cheese now, so adjust the lasagna. And oh, let's not dry out the chicken again like last year. I stared at the screen. Her face was flushed under the kitchen lights, a monogrammed scarf with my husband's name looped around her neck like she was hosting a performance. I couldn't force a smile anymore. Aunt Evelyn, I said slowly. I just had surgery. I need to rest. You've been lying down for a month. That's enough. Women these days are unbelievably weak. I hung up. No words left. I opened the recording. Hit play again. Sometimes you have to hear the pain to understand just how little you mattered. I opened a new folder on my laptop and named it Sophia's Plan. It didn't include roast chicken or mashed potatoes. This plan began with protecting myself. I wasn't staying silent anymore. And that Christmas dinner they were so excited about. It was going to happen, but not in any way they could ever imagine. I sat still in the corner of the living room, laptop on my lap, the screen glowing faintly through the thick curtains. Next to me was a stack of documents, hospital bills, bank statements, and something I never thought I'd need in my life. Recordings of conversations in my own home. I had started recording Mitchell 2 days ago, after hearing that call with his mother. At first, it was just to protect myself. But the more I listened and extracted, the more I realized I was living with a stranger. A man who didn't care about his wife's well-being, only about orchestrating her quiet removal. I planted a small mic under the desk in his office, and a tiny recorder beneath the couch. Each night, while Mitchell ranted on the phone or grumbled about wasting money on pills, I quietly captured everything. That afternoon, while Mitchell was at the gym, I called Jenna. After sending her all the recordings and scanned images of the forged signatures on the home equity papers, Jenna called back within 10 minutes. Sophia, that signature's not yours. I've handled 3 forgery cases this year. Any expert will spot it immediately. I closed my eyes, the exhaustion stretching through my whole body. It's worse than you think, Jenna continued. The house is in both your names, but if Mitchell took out equity based on Hauer 5-1 forged documents and the bank approved it, you're now legally bound to debt you never agreed to. I leaned back, my hands clenched into fists. Is there any way to stop it? Yes, but you have to move fast. You need to act while you're still in the post-surgery stage, when there's a valid reason to prove you weren't in a clear state of mind, not capable of signing legal documents. I'll send you a complaint form for signature forgery and start contacting the notary office where Mitchell filed the papers. And the house? I asked, my throat tightening. If he transfers full ownership to his mother, or sells it. I'm looking into the property records, Jenna reassured me. If there's any suspicious activity, we can request a temporary injunction to halt the transfer. But you have to hold on to every piece of evidence, and under no circumstances let them know you're aware of what's happening. You're still in that house, Sophia. You need time. I nodded, though Jenna couldn't see me. And one more thing, she added slowly. You need to prepare yourself. People like Mitchell and Evelyn don't just manipulate finances. They manipulate emotions too. If they sense you're starting to resist, they'll turn it around and label you unstable. You think they'd actually try to have me committed? I heard myself ask, my voice breaking. I think they might try. But if you document everything from prescriptions, medical records, to their text messages, I'll handle the legal side. Your job is to survive in that house until I have everything in place. After the call, I walked over to Mitchell's desk. On top sat the brown folder he always used when talking to the bank. I carefully lifted one corner, snapping photos of the first page's signature fields, account numbers, loan timelines. Back in my room, I saved all the images into a folder labeled Evidence A. I didn't have tears left to cry. Only clarity and the will to claw my way out of the swamp I once called marriage. The next day, Evelyn showed up. No warning. She stormed inside as if this were her private estate. "You haven't started cooking yet?" Evelyn asked when she saw me on the sofa, one hand on my stomach, the other holding a warm glass of water. "I'm still recovering, Aunt Evelyn. Recovering doesn't mean doing nothing. Women today are far too fragile. When I gave birth to Mitchell, I only took 3 days off before I was back to shopping and cleaning." Her eyes swept the room, judging every corner like she was raiding a hotel that failed inspection. "Where's the tree? Why haven't you changed the tablecloth? The windows are still dusty." Don't let people say Mitchell married a sloppy wife. I stayed silent. Not out of submission, but because the microphone in my coat pocket was already on. Every word she spoke was being recorded. Not a single syllable missed. She settled into the steam armchair across from me and pulled a small notebook from her purse. "Write this down. This year there will be 2 tables. One for adults, one for kids. Don't make the desserts too sweet. Madison just got braces. The turkey must be whole. Add a vegetarian dish for Summer's new boyfriend. And don't you dare use canned cranberry sauce. The one last year tasted like rubber." I nodded, my hand resting lightly on my stomach, pain pulsing with every deep breath. "Are you even listening?" "Yes, I'm saving the list," I answered softly, raising my head to meet her gaze. "Every detail. Since this will be the last time I'll ever need to remember these things." Her brows furrowed, but she said nothing more. When she left, I immediately sent the audio recording to Jenna, along with a video clip from the front door camera I had extracted. It showed the exact time she entered, how long she stayed, and everything she demanded despite my ongoing recovery from major surgery. Jenna replied almost instantly, "Perfect. Keep all these files. If they dare push you further, we'll file with the court." This is clear evidence of psychological abuse during post-surgery recovery. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not out of fear, but because my mind had begun building a plan. A very precise plan. I would host exactly the Christmas dinner they wanted. But the menu, the greetings, and the way it was served would be chosen by me. And the main course of the evening wouldn't be roast turkey or prime rib. It would be the truth. And a new flavor called consequences. I was sitting on the sofa, blanket pulled up to my waist, forcing my breaths to stay even so the pain wouldn't spread, when Mitchell walked in carrying a stack of papers bound in a red plastic folder. "Mom gave me this," he said without looking at me. "She's prepared everything. You just need to follow the plan." I took it and skimmed the first few pages. An 8-page plan. Outlining every detail, from tablecloth colors to the order of dishes. The last page was a seating chart, dictating who sat next to whom, including a note. "Do not seat Ethan and Corbin together. They argued about football last time." I looked at Mitchell. "You're serious?" He set his coffee on the table, his eyes skimming the papers like they were a work project. "You know how important Christmas is to Mom. She said if you just get everything right, she'll leave you alone." I placed the folder on my lap, my voice calm but ice cold. "I'm still recovering. I can't cook for 18 people. Then just do it gradually," Mitchell shrugged. "We've got 2 weeks. You can start making the shopping list. Mom said she'll send people to clean up before the 22nd. "Send people?" I frowned. "Yeah. Summer and Madison will come to help with the decorations. You just handle your part." I exhaled slowly. "And what exactly is my part?" 12 main courses, 4 desserts, and a vegetarian platter for Summer's new boyfriend. Mitchell hesitated, then smirked. "You've done more than that before." "I wasn't fresh out of abdominal surgery, Mitchell." "Then just sit and supervise," he replied lightly, as if he were talking about the weather. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Inside, I was already recording every word, every gesture, every shred of evidence. Everything was being logged. What I was preparing wasn't a feast. It was a case file. That evening, the messages began pouring in. Summer sent photos of new glassware, asking if I had burgundy napkins to match. Corbin texted, Hope the beef isn't tough like last year. My cousin Lindsay wrote simply, no onions in my salad. And the cookies have to be gluten-free. Don't forget. I quietly screenshotted each one. A text, a photo, a tone that assumed my service was there right. Evelyn didn't text, she called. Once a day. Every day. And each call was the same. Did you order the turkey yet? What about the candles? This year the fruitcake should have raspberry jam, not blueberry. Ed's allergic. Oh, and lay down a rug at the entrance. Don't let guests see dust on the walkway like last year. I sat propped on pillows, holding the phone, just listening. Not answering, not arguing. Just listening. Because every word was being saved. I started arranging a shopping list in my own way. But instead of writing butter, cream, or carrots, I typed each item out. Petition for protection of property rights. Temporary order to suspend transfer. Doctor's report on post-surgery condition. List of witnesses to emotional coercion. Mitchell didn't notice a thing. He thought I was cooperating. On Saturday, he brought home a Christmas tree nearly 6 feet tall. He set it in the middle of the living room, blocking the path to the back door. What do you think it feels like when I have to take each step carefully, bending over with my stitches just to pick something up? And you place this tree right in the middle of the walkway? I asked, my voice rough. Then go around through the kitchen. He didn't even look up from his phone. I gave a small laugh. This tree was Mom's choice. She wants Christmas to feel really traditional. I reminded him gently, she also wants me to wrap 82 boxes in silver paper, doesn't she? He nodded. But if you can't do it, Madison can help with summer. I turned away, slipped quietly into my room, opened the drawer, and checked the tiny mic hidden under the lamp. Still running. Still recording every word. That night I called Jenna. You holding up? Her voice was thick with worry. I'm fine. At least strategically. Emotionally. Not really. She was silent for a few seconds. They have no idea you already know. Not a clue. Keep it that way. I've already contacted the notary's office to confirm the mortgage files. The forged signature is obvious. If you want, I can take this to court. I sighed. I'm not afraid of court. I'm afraid of going soft. You won't, Jenna said firmly. You've endured too much already. And I still think that Christmas party will be the perfect stage. I nodded, though she couldn't see me. I'm getting ready. After the call, I opened the fridge. Inside were only a few yogurt cups and a bottle of juice. Mitchell had written out the grocery list, but it wasn't for me to eat. It was for me to prep ahead on schedule. I didn't go to the store. I opened a delivery app. Not for ingredients. For menus. French-style roast chicken. Southern smoked barbecue. Vegetarian lasagna. Mushroom egg pasta. Dishes from 4 different restaurants, all confirming they could deliver right at noon on Christmas Day. I hit deposit for each order, using Mitchell's card, the secondary card he'd forgotten I still had. I wasn't draining a retirement account the way he had done to me. I was just booking one meal. Paid with his money. For his family. Then I called the nearest print shop, sent them all the screenshots, and requested large A3 prints sharp with bold red borders. I had my own Christmas plan. Every person, every dish, every demand, all would be served precisely, completely, without a single detail missing. Because if they wanted tradition, I would give them tradition. But tradition wrapped in truth. And sprinkled with a touch of consequence. The next morning, I left my room earlier than usual. Mitchell was in the kitchen making coffee, still in his wrinkled pajamas. He looked surprised when he saw me standing tall, hair neatly tied back. You're up early, he asked, still groggy. I gave a faint smile. I think, maybe your mom was right. Christmas is your family's tradition. I'll do it properly. He studied me longer than usual, as if expecting your family's scowl, sarcasm or anger. But when he found nothing but calm, he only shrugged and handed me Evelyn's list of dishes she had drafted the week before. Good. Mom will be thrilled. You should start shopping early. I can drive you if you need. I took the paper, nodded, but inside felt only one thing, peace. I didn't need Mitchell to drive me anywhere. After he left the house, I carefully locked the door, pulled the curtains, and opened my laptop. 3 confirmation emails had arrived overnight. The Italian restaurant agreed to prepare 2 trays of vegetarian lasagna with dairy-free cheese, plus a sugar-free tiramisu as requested. The Chinese restaurant promised prompt delivery, offering to pre-portion the dishes for a large gathering that doesn't need fussy plating. The Southern barbecue joint required prepayment but confirmed they'd have honey-glazed chicken, mildly spiced pork ribs, and baked potatoes ready. I checked each order, adjusted the delivery time to 1 o'clock sharp. On the 25th. Perfect. Right when everyone would be seated, forks and knives in hand. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like staging a play. Except this time, I was the director. I called Jenna again. "How's the paperwork?" "More than halfway done," she said over the phone. "I've transferred your share into a trust under your own name. For now, Mitchell can't touch the house without a legal guardian's approval." I closed my eyes, leaning back in my chair. "So I can focus on setting the stage. You're really sure you want to go this big?" "Not big. Just enough for them to see themselves in the mirror." Jenna paused, then spoke softly. "I just want you to remember, this isn't about payback. It's about closure." "I know," I whispered. "I don't carry hatred anymore. But they need to see what it costs to treat someone with such disregard." After the call, I sent the compiled screenshots to the print shop. An hour later, they replied that they had finished 60 A3 sheets, each one displaying a message of pressure, criticism, and contempt. I asked them to laminate every sheet so they could be taped to walls without tearing or smudging. That afternoon, I went myself to pick them up. The clerk handed me a heavy carton box and asked quietly, "Planning an exhibition?" I smiled lightly. "Something like that." That night, Mitchell came home late. He said he had stopped by his mother's to pick up some decorations. When he stepped through the door, he froze at the sight of me sitting in the living room, sorting strings of lights, scented candles, and table linens. "You, decorating this early?" I looked up. "Just to avoid scrambling later. I think we should prepare carefully." His eyes flickered with suspicion. But then he nodded, walking upstairs. I waited until his bedroom light went out completely, then pulled a cardboard box from under the bed. Each poster was laid out carefully, numbered clearly by theme: criticism, pressure, direct insults, mocking illness, absurd demands. Each sheet was a slice of truth I once swallowed in silence. I printed 3 larger ones to cover the dining room wall. One from Evelyn: "Christmas isn't for whining. If you can't do it, step aside." One from Summer: "If you can't cook, at least don't ruin the whole family's dinner." And one from Mitchell: "Aren't you just lying around all day anyway?" I didn't need to tell my story. They would hear their own voices. Then I wrote a small sign, no names, just a single line: "Welcome to the dinner you asked for. Main course, the truth." I placed it in the center of the table, beneath the white candle. The next day I went to the small bakery near the park. The owner, an older woman with sharp, kind eyes, had spoken with me a few times before. "What do you need for the holiday?" "I need a cake people won't be able to swallow." She laughed. "What do you mean?" "Just decorate it normally, vanilla frosting, a Christmas tree on top, but inside, fill it with spice. Very spicy." Her eyebrows rose. "Are you trying to scare someone?" I looked at her, speaking slowly. "I just want them to remember the taste of the words they once forced me to swallow." She nodded, not asking further. "I understand. Leave your address. I'll deliver it myself." On the way home, I stopped at the park. The cold air stung my fingers, but inside me was a strange warmth. I didn't feel small among Mitchell's family. I didn't feel like I had to cook and smile just to keep everyone else comfortable. I didn't know if they would end up angry, confused, or silent. But that no longer mattered. I was preparing a feast made of truth. And with self-respect as the main course, I knew I would be full. On the evening of December 23rd, Mitchell walked into the kitchen to see me talking with a woman in a white apron, her hair tied neatly, gloves on, jotting notes in a small pad. "Who's this?" he asked, setting a grocery bag on the counter. I looked up, offering a small smile. "You're home. This is Lauren. She's the private chef I hired temporarily, to handle the main dishes and oversee preparations. I thought doing it all alone would be impossible. Lauren tilted her head politely. Glad to support your family this season. Mitchell looked surprised, but Lauren's professionalism left no room for argument. After a moment's hesitation, he nodded and turned away, muttering something under his breath. I had arranged everything with Lauren beforehand. In truth, she wasn't a professional chef but a nurse who once worked in home care, now shifting to post-surgical support. Jenna had introduced her, saying I needed someone discreet, observant, and above all, someone who knew when to remain silent. Your main job is to look busy with the menu, I instructed Lauren once Mitchell was out of earshot. Boil water, chop onions, stir something just for the smell. But don't cook anything edible. Don't use real ingredients. She nodded. Got it. You want them to believe the feast is being prepared exactly as demanded. I opened the cupboard, pulling out a small case of microphones and hidden cameras Jenna had mailed me. Together, Lauren and I installed the devices in the dining room and living room, ensuring every word, every reaction, would be recorded. I placed one microphone directly under the table, between Evelyn and Mitchell's seats, knowing that was where the harshest words would come. I asked Lauren to check batteries every morning and night, and mark any notable times if she could. She agreed, her eyes steady. Throughout our work, she never cried more than once. Maybe because she had once cared for patients forgotten in their own homes, she understood too well the weight of serving others while being in pain. Yourself. By December 24th, everything moved like clockwork. Mitchell began to believe I had surrendered completely. When he came home, he smelled frying onions, boiling water, the clang of pans. Lauren always wore her apron, tools in hand, bowing slightly and greeting him in a perfectly polite tone. That night, after Mitchell fell asleep, I quietly packed clothes into a small suitcase. Just a few sets of pajamas, some books, my laptop, and a bag of medicine. I went to the living room, where Lauren was double-checking the cameras. You're leaving tomorrow morning for sure? She asked. Exactly 8 a.m. A private car will pick me up at the corner. By the time everyone arrives, I'll be gone. Lauren nodded. And my part? Everything is prepaid and I've left detailed instructions. After they realize what's happened, you can withdraw. The cameras will automatically upload to cloud storage. I pulled out a blue envelope, placing it in her hand. Thank you for helping me hold on to the truth. Not everyone could do that without judgment. She gave a faint smile. I've seen too many people suffocated in their own homes. You're not the first, but I hope you'll be the last I ever have to witness. I squeezed her hand gently, then walked back to my room. I stayed awake the whole night. Not from fear, but because something inside me was shifting. As if every cell in my body was learning how to breathe again, not with the cold air of fear, but with the warmth of autonomy. I wrote a small note and left it on the dining table. The words were simple, in black ink: don't ask where I am. Ask yourselves why I had to leave. I didn't sign it. I left one small gift wrapped in fabric, a USB containing recordings of phone calls, unreasonable demands, even a clip of Mitchell discussing committing me to a psychiatric facility. I labeled the package, Memories of Someone Once Forgotten. At dawn, I slipped out, through the garden gate, the only part Mitchell hadn't wired with cameras. A gray SUV waited, the driver hired through a private medical transport service Jenna had arranged. Miss Sophia. I nodded. Yes. Let's go. The car rolled quietly out of the neighborhood, mist still hanging low. Through the rearview mirror, I saw the house fading behind me. Christmas lights still twinkled. Mitchell was still asleep. Evelyn was likely getting her dress ready. Summer was probably online boasting. My mom and sister-in-law love each other like a fairy tale family. I knew they would all arrive on time. They were always punctual when there was something to receive. And what they were getting was not roast chicken or mashed potatoes. It was the truth reheated at exactly 1 p.m. and served by the very hands they had once treated as invisible. I leaned my head against the glass door, hands tight around the suitcase on my lap. I was not running away. I was simply stepping out of the house where people had made me cook dinner, clean up, and smile as if I had never been in pain. When I arrived at the quiet lakeside resort in the northern part of the state, the clock read 8:30 a.m. The receptionist accepted my suitcase with a gentle smile and handed me the key to room 102, a wooden door opening out to the calm blue water. I put my phone on silent and kept only a private connection to Jenna and Lauren. Everything else I left to time. From the small tablet inside the cabin, I opened the home camera management app. In the top corner was the countdown. 10:55 a.m. December 25th. Cars arrived at the gate one after another. First was Evelyn, stepping out in a deep red coat, clutching a bundle of plastic white flowers. Next came Summer, adjusting her perfectly curled blonde hair as she walked, one hand pulling little Madison, who was grumpy from the cold. Corbin arrived last in a charcoal suit, holding a gift bag tied with a gold ribbon. Mitchell came out of the house, hands in his pockets, saying something I couldn't hear, his face calm as if everything was under control. He opened the front door and bowed slightly to invite them in, a proper gentleman. I zoomed in the living room camera. Evelyn took off her coat, looking around with a frown. "Where's the tree? I saw it in the picture Lauren sent the other day," she said. "She said she would have it sorted last night," Mitchell replied, a bit flustered. "Maybe it wasn't ready." "Not ready?" Evelyn turned to him. "Christmas starts with the table, Mitchell. Not with excuses." Summer stepped into the kitchen first. The click of her high heels sped up. She stopped short when she saw pots and pans quietly sitting on the stove, the oven cold, and a dining table set with a pristine white cloth. But no food, no familiar smells filling the house as in past years. "What is this?" Corbin asked from behind. "Where's the meal?" At that moment, Evelyn moved into the dining room and froze. Every eye turned to the large wall opposite the table, the wall I had covered with more than 60 large format posters. On them were text messages, emails, discharge papers, medical bills, and the criticisms they had sent me. "If you ruin the dinner again, don't show your face. Madison can't eat what you make anymore. She was sick all night last year. Mom already said, if you can't do it, then get out of this house." Summer stepped back slowly, hand over her mouth. Madison scanned the room with a bewildered look. On the table sat a vanilla cake, neatly placed, with chocolate writing, "Dessert reserved for short memories." Lauren came out from the kitchen, still wearing her apron, holding the remote. She pressed a button. The TV on the wall lit up. At first it was just a black screen, then Mitchell's voice rang out clear and undeniable. "Once she won't cooperate, Mom will call the doctor. Say, she's paranoid after surgery. We push her out, then sell the house. I need capital to reinvest. Crypto is down now. Good time to buy in." Corbin spun around to look at Mitchell. "What is that?" Mitchell went pale. "Who turned this on?" Lauren didn't answer. She set the remote down and stepped back toward the kitchen. The recording continued. I heard Evelyn's voice, soft but cold. "She's always whining. Weak women can't keep a tidy house." Summer squeezed Madison and whispered, "Turn it off." But no one dared touch the remote. All eyes were glued to the screen where the truth buried for so long now unfolded in each word, each pause, each calculated plan made under the roof they called tradition. The screen suddenly went dark. A single line of text appeared. "Don't ask where I am. Ask why I had to leave." For a few seconds no one spoke. I watched the screen. Evelyn stood motionless like a statue. Summer bowed her head, her face drawn white. Corbin sank into a chair, eyes blank. Mitchell stood by the table, hands shaking, his gaze fixed on the small gift box placed in the center. Lauren stepped forward once more and placed a small USB into Evelyn's open palm. "She left this for you. It has everything what you should listen to. And remember," Evelyn turned suddenly, as if to protest, but no sound came out. She looked at Lauren, then around the room. The table was laid out, the white cloth smooth, scented candles flickering, the cake untouched, but there was no hot food, and no Sophia, the woman Evelyn had treated every year like an extension of the kitchen. Madison asked in a small voice, "Mom, is Aunt Sophia coming home?" Summer hugged her daughter and shook her head. Mitchell finally spoke, hoarse. "She's not coming back." And I, sitting in the small lakeside cabin wrapped in mist, put my hand to my chest. My heartbeat was no longer tight with anger. It was still, like the morning water. I was not present at that dinner. But I had seen their reactions. I had watched, heard, and preserved every detail, not for revenge, but so it would never be forgotten. Evelyn gripped the USB like it was a burning thing. Her eyes reddened, and she began to cry. But it wasn't the kind of remorseful cry. It was the choking sob of someone affronted at losing control. She sank into the head chair, pulled a handkerchief, trying to wipe her tears but smearing them more. "That girl, she recorded me," she blurted. "She's been spying on me like an enemy in our own house." Madison pressed close to Summer, wide-eyed. The 10-year-old might not grasp everything that had happened, but she was sensitive enough to know this wasn't the joyful holiday her mother promised. "Where is Aunt Sophia?" Madison whispered. Summer hugged her tight, avoiding eye contact. But Madison broke free, ran to the table, and searched the room for a familiar face. "Aunt Sophia, where are you? Aren't you coming back?" she cried. No one answered. "She's sick. Why did you make her do everything?" Madison yelled through tears. "You're mean. Grandma is mean too. You made her work when she was hurt. I hate you all." Summer panicked and held her daughter, whispering, "Madison, don't say that. I mean it." Madison shouted louder. "Aunt Sophia said I'm the only one who asks if she's okay." "I remember." Mitchell stood near the fireplace, face clouded. He no longer carried the composure he had when he opened the door. His brow knit, hands clenched. "It's all my mother's fault." He suddenly turned on Evelyn. If she hadn't pressured her with those lists, if she hadn't sent those ridiculous demands, she wouldn't have gone this far. Evelyn looked up, stunned. "You're blaming Mom," she snapped. "Who else?" Mitchell roared. "From the start she never accepted her. She's always criticizing, coercing, even meddling in the house." Corbin lounged back in his chair, tone dripping with sarcasm. "Oh, finally someone sees it." Summer was still comforting Madison, tears in her eyes. Have we really been that cruel to her?" Evelyn leapt to her feet, pointing at the dark TV. "She purposely humiliated us. On the holiest day." Mitchell didn't answer. He quietly pulled out his phone and opened his messages. At that exact moment, everyone received a notification. A message from me went to the family group. No complaints, no accusations. Just one line. "Dinner has been paid with Mitchell's credit card. If you're unhappy, please take it up with the bank. I will not give back the house because it never belonged to you." Mitchell read it, his face going white. He gripped his phone as if it were something he could crush. "She used my card," he shouted. Corbin sneered. "That's light. If it were me, I'd have sold this whole table by now." Mitchell yelled, slamming his phone down on the floor. A sharp cracking sound rang out. The screen flew off the frame and the battery popped out, rolling under the couch. Summer startled. Madison panicked and burst into tears. "Are you crazy?" Summer screamed. "Our child is standing right here. She humiliated me." Mitchell roared. "She recorded me. She's exposed all the private business of this family." Evelyn trembled to her feet, her voice a hiss through clenched teeth. "We need a lawyer. Sue her for public humiliation. We have to take her to court." Corbin laughed again. "You think you've got a chance to win after what's on those recordings?" Everyone spoke directly into microphones and cameras. "There's no way to backtrack." Evelyn sank back down, her eyes bewildered. Summer held her daughter tight, rubbing her back to calm her, and murmured, "Madison, do you want something to eat?" The little girl shook her head, tears still streaking her cheeks. "I don't want food. I want to call Aunt Sophia." Summer froze, then whispered, "Aunt Sophia isn't at home anymore." "Where did she go?" "She needed to rest." Madison turned to look at Evelyn. "Grandma, why didn't you let Aunt Sophia rest when she was here?" Evelyn didn't answer. She bowed her head, lips pressed together as if to deny the question that had just been asked. Mitchell stepped toward the door, grabbing his coat. His voice was rough. "I'll deal with this. Mom, stay and clean up. Summer, take Madison home. I don't want to see anyone else here today." "And where are you going?" Evelyn asked. "To the bank. And to call a lawyer." Corbin shook his head, stood up, and picked up the still unopened gift bag. Let's say you get your money back. But reputation? That's ruined. When the door clicked shut behind Mitchell, I was still sitting by the window of the lakeside cabin, sipping hot tea. Wind sifted through the rows of pines in the distance. The sky was a thin beige sheet of gray. I felt no triumph, only the calm of someone who has finally let go of a life that no longer had a place for her. They could be angry, panicked, and point fingers. But the truth is not something anyone can tidy away. A week after Christmas, I walked into the lawyer's office with Jenna on a bitterly cold morning. The wind tugged at the hem of my coat, but I did not shiver. I had been through enough pain to know that cold was the most bearable kind of silence. Jenna walked beside me, a thick file clamped in her hand. She said nothing as we entered the reception area where the assistant nodded. I nodded back and kept walking, chin up, step steady. The conference room was at the end of the hall. The frosted glass revealed Mitchell's silhouette slumped forward, hands interlaced, eyes fixed on the table. I pushed the door open. Mitchell looked up when he saw me. Surprise flickered across his face, then shifted into suspicion. I didn't greet him. Jenna nodded to his attorney and placed our file on the table. Let's begin, she said. The air in the room felt heavy as lead. I sat down across from Mitchell. There were no pleasantries, no polite lead-in. This was no longer a conversation between husband and wife. It was between someone who had been betrayed and the person who had shattered trust. This is the divorce petition. Jenna slid the original document toward Mitchell. Attached is the full financial evidence related to forged signatures, misuse of joint assets, and breach of your duty to protect your spouse's health. Mitchell stared at the stack of papers like he'd never seen legal documents before. He glanced at me, opening his mouth to say something, but I kept my gaze steady and focused on my breathing so I wouldn't crumble. Are you going to take this far? He asked, his voice tight. Jenna smiled faintly. She's not escalating. You are the one who started all of this. From the forged signature on the home equity loan to forcing someone recovering from major surgery to host a dinner for 18. Mitchell was silent. His hand twitched on the tabletop as if calculating a way to retreat. Jenna continued. I recorded testimony from the notary's office where you filed the loan. The representative confirmed you came alone and claimed your wife was not able to travel and had given verbal authorization. There are no documents to prove that. Mitchell turned to me. I didn't mean to hurt you. At the time I was under a lot of pressure. I looked him in the eye. Was pressure your reason to have me committed, or to take our retirement money without telling me? He recoiled like he'd been slapped. His eyelids fluttered. When did you find out? He asked. Before I ordered the takeout for the party. For a long moment, no one spoke. Only the wind whispered past the glass. Mitchell bowed his head, his fingers drumming the table with a nervous rhythm. I thought, maybe after Christmas everything would be back to normal. We'd talk. I'd apologize. You had a whole year to talk, I cut in. But you chose silence. You let your mother issue orders. You let me serve, you let me fall apart in my own home. Mitchell brought his hands to his head, his voice breaking. I was wrong. But we had good days, didn't we? I didn't answer. To dredge up the few pleasant memories to justify a long string of hurt would be like trying to save a rotten house because once its curtains were pretty. Jenna opened another folder. And here is the power of attorney document in your mother's name, she said, sliding a packet toward him. Evelyn's signature appears on it, dated while my client was still in the hospital recovering. The document authorizes her to make decisions about repairs, leases, and transfers if necessary. Mitchell blinked. What? I checked the notary stamp. It's valid. And the document authorizes her to make decisions about repairs. Filing went to the county recorder just 3 days after Sophia's admission. I didn't know about this, Mitchell stammered. All the worse, then, Jenna said slowly. Either you were complicit, or you were grossly negligent with your shared marital assets. Mitchell was pushed back into his chair. He sat motionless for a few seconds, then whispered, Are you going to press criminal charges? No, I replied. I don't need anyone to go to prison. I just need to walk away without carrying debt. Jenna nodded, shifting into a clear legal tone. My client requests full retention of the house as part of compensation for emotional and health damages. The joint accounts will be divided proportionally after deducting the illegal withdrawals your side made. You have nothing left, Mitchell murmured. I have nothing left. I stood up. I'm not taking anything from you. You traded it away. I pulled a small USB from my pocket and set it in front of him. It contains the recording of you talking about investing in crypto with money from the house I had to pay for with my health. If you ever need a reminder of why I'm not coming back, open it. Mitchell covered his face, his shoulders trembling. Jenna closed the file and stood beside me. We will file all formal paperwork within 3 days. Any hearing, if necessary, can be requested to be held in camera because it involves private health information. But I advise you to sign quickly to avoid further complications. Mitchell said nothing. He sat there quietly, like someone waking from a long dream only to realize everything he assumed to be certain was gone. I didn't look back as I walked out of the room, not out of bitterness, but because after turning back so many times, I understood the only thing worthy to move forward with me was myself. I returned to the old house on a New Year's morning. No longer Mitchell Graham's wife, no longer the dutiful daughter-in-law in Evelyn's eyes, no longer the invisible name called upon at every holiday. I returned as the sole legal owner of the house. The transferred sign in front of the yard had been taken down a week earlier. Jenna had completed all the paperwork, and I, after countless winters spent washing dishes in silence, signed the documents that re-established full ownership. I opened the door, stepped inside, and took a deep breath. The house was the same, but no longer heavy with control. The frames that once lined the hallway, the wedding photos, the perfect family Thanksgiving pictures, Mitchell standing next to Evelyn in the backyard, I had taken them all down. In their place were the prints I chose. Frames I printed myself. One held a photo of me sitting by the lake, a scarf around my shoulders, a cup of tea in my hand. Another frame held the hurried handwritten note Madison wrote the day before. Aunt Sophia, I miss you. I hope next year we can have Christmas together, just the two of us is fine. The divorce was finalized by the court. Mitchell did not contest. I don't know if he truly gave up or was simply exhausted. But Jenna made it clear, I won. Lawfully, rightfully, and, above all, in a way that aligned with my own heart. In the final filing, I also included a request for a protection order against Evelyn not to come within 500 feet of my home, not to send letters, and not to call. My reason was simple: recovery of my health and privacy after a prolonged period of psychological harm. The court granted it. And Jenna said, she won't dare show up. The media is already circling. I didn't realize the reach until my phone buzzed non-stop for 3 days. Messages from old friends, messages from strangers. Links sent repeatedly with notes, "You're our icon." A Reddit user had reposted the video clip from the Christmas event. I'm not sure how they obtained it. Perhaps Lauren shared from the camera archive. The clip was 6 minutes long. It opened with a doorbell, then Evelyn stepping into the house, followed by everyone's stunned reactions as they saw the posters plastering the walls. The clip ended with the line on the screen, "Don't ask where I am. Ask why I had to leave." The post ran under the title, "Christmas with my in-laws and why I got even with takeout." In less than 24 hours, the post climbed to the top of Reddit. After 3 days, the clip was reposted on YouTube with the caption, "Women's silence is not resignation, it's the start of a feast of truth." Comments poured in like a flood. A woman named Marlene wrote, "I cooked Christmas for my in-laws for 16 years and never once was asked, 'Are you tired?' Thank you for showing me I'm not crazy." Another user commented, "She didn't just get even. She taught the whole family a class on boundaries, and they failed the quais test." People asked for documents. People asked for scripts on how to respond when forced to cook while hooked up to an IV. I was equal parts amused and moved. That evening I opened my laptop and started a new blog. I named it, Tradition Rewritten. The subtitle I wrote, "You have the right to step away from the holiday table if it harms you." I wrote the first post at midnight. The title, "The Kitchen Where I Broke Down." I didn't recount everything as a report. I wrote in a candid voice, like whispering to a friend beside me. About how I once thought I was selfish for saying no to cooking. About the shame of being called useless for daring to sit down and rest. About the guilt of seeing a missing dish on the table even when the missing person was me. Less than 2 hours after posting, the article had been shared over 300 times. One message read, "I'm 52. This is the first time I told my husband, I'm not cooking this year." Another, "I'm reading your post with dough still on my hands. I'm crying. Thank you for letting me stop. I never imagined my blog would become a movement." But in 3 weeks, Tradition Rewritten had over 10,000 subscribers. Women from everywhere sent their stories, from brides forced to clean as soon as they'd had a baby, to a mother of 3 called lazy for ordering pizza instead of cooking. I read every submission. Each line, each word, felt like the memories I once lived. I invited Jenna to write about legal rights in marriage. I asked Lauren if she would share her experience caring for patients suffering emotional abuse. She nodded and said, "You have the blog. I have the experience. Let's rewrite what kindness means." My house was no longer a place for judgment. It became a haven for women who needed to read a sentence reminding them they were not wrong. That they weren't fragile, overly sensitive, or weak, just too patient for too long. I walked down the hallway and turned on the dining room light. The wall that had once held all those posters was now covered by a large painting. A simple green sprig. And a small line right beneath it. "I used to be the main course at every holiday. Now I write the menu." I laid my hand on the wooden table, my arm brushing an old scratch Evelyn once called a mark of carelessness. I smiled. Those scratches are now part of the history mine. No one is allowed to erase them. No one is allowed to rename the things I lived through. I don't need a perfect party. I just need a seat, a place where no one can make me stand up midway because they suddenly decide they matter more. That morning, soft sunlight filtered through the small kitchen window of my new apartment. There was no jarring doorbell, no one ordering or scolding me about a missing dish or a mismatched tablecloth. There was only the faint smell of cinnamon rolls in the air, the kettle gently boiling, and my small laugh when I accidentally spilled a little cinnamon on the floor. I was here in a small, tidy, cozy apartment in the quiet suburb I had always dreamed of but never believed I could live in. A year had passed since that turbulent Christmas. This year I prepared the meal my way. Not complicated, not flashy. Just a few garlic butter toasts, a hot mushroom soup, a microgreen salad, and a cup of hot chocolate topped with crushed peppermint. Everything I love, not the other people's family recipes they forced me to make. My friends would arrive after lunch. Jenna and her husband were bringing a ukulele. Lauren texted that she was on her way with a basket of red apples. Madison, small now, living with her mom and studying art, sent me a handmade card that read, "Aunt Sophia is the light on my Christmas tree. I don't need the biggest Christmas. I need a Christmas with you." I keep that card in my wallet. Small, simple, but the most important note I've ever received. While waiting for everyone, I packed a few warm meals into paper boxes printed with "Season's blessings." From someone who once knew what loneliness felt like. Yesterday I'd called the city's women's support center that takes in single mothers and survivors of domestic violence. Each meal I sent today was a message. I haven't forgotten how I stepped out of the dark. My phone buzzed. A message from an old contact, a journalist who covered my story last year. He sent a short article. Former Deputy Director Mitchell Graham charged with financial fraud. Shares tumble after revelations of shell accounts and an illegal investment scheme leak. I looked at the screen, feeling neither anger nor glee. I simply exhaled. That outcome was probably inevitable when someone feeds on pretense for too long. Minutes later, another alert popped up from the local news app. Evelyn Graham, formerly a community supervisor, will participate in the nursing home's Christmas program at the manager's request, preparing a traditional lunch for staff and residents in the geriatrics wing. I pictured her wearing plastic gloves and a white apron, standing by a commercial stove with a scowl as she sprinkled salt over mashed potatoes. No home cameras, no embroidered table linens, and no one quietly doing the dishes for her. I stepped out onto the balcony. The little tree I bought last week stood modestly in its wooden pot. I hadn't decorated much. Just a few strings of warm lights, a silver star on top, and only one ornament hanging. The wooden spoon I used years ago. The spoon Evelyn once mocked as cheap, now hand-engraved with, "Christmas doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs the right people." I sat in the wicker chair, wrapped a shawl around my shoulders. No one called me into the kitchen. No one asked, "Why aren't you making the chestnut roasted chicken this year?" Just me, a soft jazz record, and a gentle breeze playing at my hair. A while later, a knock at the door. I opened it to see Jenna holding a still warm apple pie, her face bright as a winter sun. "You look exactly like freedom," she laughed, setting the pie on the table. I replied quietly, "Because this is the first time I baked my holiday for myself." Lauren arrived soon after with 2 small gift boxes and a chalkboard sign reading, "No one needs a fancy party. But everyone needs a place where they don't have to pretend." The 3 of us sat around the table, laughing and swapping small stories about how things had changed. About the woman from my blog who wrote to thank me for daring to say no to her mother-in-law. About the online support group Jenna was advising pro bono. About Madison's upcoming little art show at the city library. I looked at the 2 women across from me, not blood, not relatives, but family in the truest sense. A family I chose. A family that chose me. I poured another cup of tea, smiled, and murmured like a reminder to myself. Holidays, in the end, aren't about the food. They're about the feeling of living true to yourself, not pretending, not shrinking. And this time, I choose myself. What would you think of a Christmas that doesn't need a lavish table or every tradition ticked off, but just genuine presence? Have you ever stood in a cold kitchen, cooking dish after dish for people who never saw you as a person? Or have you ever, like me, chosen to walk away not out of weakness, but because you finally had the strength to protect yourself? If you've ever found yourself at a forced holiday table, swallowing words you wanted to say, I hope you find the courage to rewrite your own tradition. No one's born to live forever in a role others assign. You have the right to choose again. You have the right to a small Christmas that is truly yours. If this story touched you in any way, share your thoughts below. Maybe someone else needs to hear what you just felt inside. And if you want to keep following me through honest stories about family, choices, and the ordinary things that can change a life, hit subscribe. Because life isn't only about holidays. Life is the journey of learning to love the right people, and first and foremost, yourself.